lah nih hari pasal mau kawin kan Ndak, sebab banyak sudah kan orang kalau kita tengok lah orang muda-muda banyak yang pilih tidak mau kawin, yang orang yang single-single pun macam semakin ramai dalam perasaan saya lah.
Yeah.
Jadi apa kamu orang pikiran pasal ni isu? Bukan isu lah, topik bah.
I'm just looking at the dia punya marriage statistics in Malaysia. Wait, but this is actually.
Kamu share kah?
Wait, sekejap. Okay, let me just share on the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay, 2019.
Yeah, so this is probably quite recent, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know what you guys think about this number. Oh, it's actually dropped a bit.
The number of marriages has dropped by 1.2%, right?
Yeah,
and then
not
the number
lot.
of divorces has increased by
12%.
So
that's actually also a good point. Like, what do we say about that? I don't know. Like, if we were to start with the question of to marry or not to marry, guys.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like a good start. Like, so for me personally, with the idea of when you grow up, in an age where there's a lot of like feminist values and beliefs, being critical about patriarchy and how patriarchy influences everything. So, I mean, I understand that and I align myself with certain beliefs. But when it comes to marriage, I understand how patriarchy can be inherent in marriage as an institution, but I also believe that it's not the same thing across the board. Like, not all marriages are, even if it is patriarchal, that sometimes how it manifests itself in reality can actually be quite egalitarian, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, okay, your children take your husband's name, etc., but probably all of the division of work apa semua tu quite similar, kan? So there's teamwork in raising the children, etc., or even the women takes more of the apa. Yeah, so like that lah. For me, I guess the simple way is that I do believe in an institution of marriage, and I do believe that it works only if you find the right partner to do it with.
Yeah. I mean that's definitely true lah, finding the right partner, because kalau like speaking from my own experience lah kan, macam because I was 19 when I was in my first marriage kan. Itu pun because got pregnant, so it's like people keep saying, oh, that's the best thing, the best thing moving forward is to get married, so your anak will have your husband's name in the birth certificate, because back then kan it's such a taboo bah to be a single mom, yang especially anak yang tiada bebinkan or bebintikan someone. And then I think for me kan macam it was definitely a rush point. And then memang lah when you're that young kan, and then you were raised to that belief like, oh, women should be the ones to do the washing, women are the ones who should learn how to sew, to cook, and then that time macam it doesn't really apply anymore, especially because we are in a place where both women and men are now going to university, earning a degree, and then going to be part of the workforce in the future. And then if you have someone yang does not accept you for your ambition kan, or accept you as not that perfect, in the box yang, or women must be this, women must be that, and then cannot accept you for that person who's not in that box, that's when it becomes dangerous lah. That's when it becomes a lot of conflict in the marriage. Yeah. What do you think, Suri?
I think okay, maybe we can ask Robert first.
Astaga.
A male perspective first.
Okay, male
Yeah,
perspective.
Robert first.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Um, so going back to the statistics, I think it's very interesting if you look at the statistics itself in regards to the median age. The median age for marrying is between 24 to 20 something, right? And the median age for divorce is something like 34 to 36 or something like that. And it goes to show lah. I mean, the average lifespan that is expected of most new marriages in today's world is about plus minus 10 years. I think this says something about our state as a nation, which is quite new. If you think about it, like no, we're kind of a new generation of everything. Whether it's because we're children of baby boomers, whether it's because we're um, first generation Malaysian, second generation Malaysian, a lot of us don't have a lot to hold on to, except what the people took off the boat lah, technically speaking. And so like there's this saying that education is the great equalizer, and as at the institution, as you pointed out, Farhana, as patriarchy remains a sort of like a staunch building block in the institution of marriage, I think more and more people are beginning to understand the hard way that we don't understand each other very, very well. And we think that a marriage is built on a certificate, as in like you walk into the registrar's office and then you get a certificate and you walk out and you're married. But it's so much more than that. I mean, we don't give enough education to our young about how to lead proper marriage, proper relationships, because it's such a taboo topic, as Sabrina pointed out. Like it's such a taboo topic to talk about sex, and we don't go into life, I think, like necessarily knowing how to live relationships. I think that's my personal feeling. So we end up making a lot of mistakes in the process. And I think the divorce rate, as we're seeing today, is really just a symptom of that.
Yeah, I guess I agree with also like the lack of education, but also what I can say for the Muslim community, the rhetoric or discourses around how marriage has been promoted to us. It's like one way is menghalalkan apa yang haram, so that actually is sex. So if you want to be intimate with somebody, you have to marry them because that's what's going to make sex halal for you, for both of you, which I think is very problematic, because you are selling that idea to youngsters or even young adults who, some people are at the peak of their hormones, and very giddy to fall in love straight after school or in the university and without concrete planning for the future, and you sell that and then they're like, okay, let's get married. And I have nothing against young people getting married, but I do think there is some validity in considering the practicalities of finances, support. Because if you look at the whole social support institution in Malaysia, I wonder if you are a student studying and you get pregnant, do you have university facilities to help women with pregnant students?
No.
Yeah, things like that. So I think really it is a very it needs to basically be a very collective discussion on
Yeah.
all aspects of society, like not just between the people who want to get married and their families, but it's actually a society punya discussion lah.
I think it's very cultural, like the assumption that education is only for those who are still single or, doesn't have kids, that sort of thing. And then what was it? Oh yeah, there's so little emphasis even before when we talk about marriage lah. There's very little emphasis on healthy relationships, like what constitutes a healthy relationship. So it's not just boy meets girl, suka-suka, and then let's get married. And there's never been much talk about how do you behave respectfully to your other half. Instead, what we do have is a lot of don't have sex before marriage, abstain, abstain, abstain. So I yeah, so that's where we're missing a lot lah, in my opinion.
I'm actually inclined to agree somewhat because um, if you look at it, I think one of the key markers of what's happening in our society is like childhood marriages, and how more often than not we see the narrative of childhood marriages being very male dominated, in that the male is the savior, the male is the person to provide that future, to 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 basically like become uh the support mechanism for that person going forward. And we cast this backdrop onto kids as young as, like, what was the youngest so far, 10, 13. um so it's like i I often wonder, like, um which part do we play in like what, as you pointed out, Sabrina, is like, um in the education and culture of what we bring forward, right? It's like, do we teach our young boys and girls enough to live a proper relationship, like even from young? Because they have to know how to be. This was the argument for co-ed schools in the 19 like early 1900s. Why, instead of like having just male only schools or female only schools, why you should have co-ed schools? um so like, to me, going back to what Farhana said about new wave feminism, and in today's age, I think that um, it's not so much about feminism as we know it in terms of popular context, but rather, like, we're just finding out now how to talk to women in a way that is respectful, and men haven't caught up with that. As men, we haven't really, we're trying to find adjusting. And that's why, I mean, even when you think about the process of divorce, a woman, especially in the Islamic culture, women don't necessarily instigate the divorce. It's usually the men that instigate the divorce. And the same thing happens in several other cultures as well. Because as a woman, you're not told to be assertive in your own choices. You're taught to follow the man. You know?
Yeah. Hi, Suri. Yeah, I definitely agree. And, I think also when we talk about, marriage, it's not just about like what happens before you get married, but we also need to talk about what happens when you're married, and what can happen or what should happen if you decide to leave the marriage. What are your rights as either man or woman when it comes to say, getting a way out. And I think with what Robert said about women not instigating marriage, I think a lot of them do want to leave, or especially if they're suffering in an abusive relationship, but probably because of cultural socialization, indoctrination, they feel like, oh, it's not my place. Like, or I will bring shame to the family. Or like, who wants me? Nanti janda. Janda lagi ada anak, who wants me? And then even in Malaysia, we've heard of so many cases of women struggling to go up and down the Sharia courts,
Yep.
trying to file for a divorce because
Yep.
the system in Malaysia isn't very conducive for that, which I'm very sorry about that. But I think a lot of the women's rights activists in Malaysia, no matter how you disagree with them, but they are actually doing very good work in assisting women to achieve that lah. Yeah.
No, I think one of the other things that maybe we lack perspective in is what it means to be married. Like when you enter the contract, the social contract that is a marriage, and the institution as dictated by religion. Because let's be honest, like, they're two very separate things. One involves taxes, the other doesn't involve taxes. So it's like I think we tend to talk more of the religious aspect of marriage more than the practical aspects of marriage. Like in which that's what leads to a lot of problems. I think especially because I can't attest to it, but maybe in the Muslim context, because of how everything is so about menghalalkan yang haram lah, for example, is like it makes it such a one-sided coin, regarding like all you want out of the relationship is one-sided, right? Instead of multiple aspects. You don't think about how much you can build together. You don't think about how much that you can achieve together. You think about how much, like what you want out of each other instead of what you want with each other.
Oh, that's deep. That's deep. Yeah, true. That is true. I have to agree with Robert lah. Yeah, true. Sebab whenever macam I see tadi just now we highlighted about finding a right partner to go into a marriage, and then I see how the society put more burden on women, especially when you're married. See, when you're married, this is from what I observe lah. Women are expected to be a great mother, a great wife. Then you must always listen to your husband, whenever your husband is a piece of shit or not. You still like, there are cases when the woman has been brutally abused by the husband. She made a police report, but then due to the pressure of her own mother, dia cakap, you cannot do that to your husband. Syurga kau di kaki suami kau lah. All that shit. No offense to anyone, but then because we put this onto our women, then that's why our women are so caught up in this. Oh no, if I go for divorce, if I ask for divorce, how am I in the eyes of my God? How am I in the eyes of my family, in the eyes of my children? This is because you pick a partner that is not good. Not that is not good, because when we are in love, everything is good, ma. When you have gone through the process, love can disappear. Then what's left is just your commitment to each other. Aku cakap macam kahwin 4 tahun sudah. But then yes, this is how I view things. So at my age, how to be married or not to be married, yeah, it is a choice. It is a choice where I see that I would always choose to get married if I found a guy yang would understand me, how I work, how I function on a social level, on my family level, how I work lah. That would be, but then that would be hard lah kan, sebab because people think differently nowadays. And then I understand that guys the guys yang I know lah in my circle, they would want a wife that is according to Facebook punya standard, which is you must follow whatever your husband said, you must be the wife yang stay at home, things like that lah. Yeah, but then yes.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like when you pointed out, like maybe this is my affected by my own upbringing apa semua, and probably perhaps a bit more informed about feminism, Islam apa segala tu. I don't get why women would somehow think like, or people who teach their women, if you get divorced or if you initiate the divorce, then God will be unhappy with you. Like, but if you're in an abusive relationship, why would God want to keep you in an abusive relationship? That's not my idea of God. Like, God is merciful, Ar-Rahman, apa semua tu kan. And I think this is among circles in Muslim communities as well. This has been actually a point of contention lah. Like, if you do not tell women who come from abusive families or in an abusive marriage, to have sabar, because it's like when you talk to a depressed person, turn to God. I think that also this points to a complete collapse of society, because it's basically like you saying, just turn to God. Well, you should actually help. As a society, you actually need to gather around and be, in a way, a manifestation of God's work in helping your fellow apa. So it's very easy to say, okay, just turn to God, or jangan buat begitu nanti Tuhan marah. But actually, it's when somebody tells you, okay, I'm in an abusive marriage, then you have to like say, physically help them or whatever lah, begitu. So to me, that's my view of it lah. Like, God will never, in my man, want you to stay with a man who hits you and makes your life miserable.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Even the
Because
prophet didn't do that.
praying will not change your abusive partner punya traits bah. So this is one of our culture punya habit, right? Whenever there's something bad happening to us, they said, oh bersabarlah, banyak-banyak kau berdoa, kita doa ramai-ramai, okay? No man, if you see your friend is abused by the partner, you go to the police, make a police report, way. That's how you should deal with it. Not that, redo je lah sis. Sepak karang. Mengang pula aku.
I think there's something that is said in most religions that is true for all contexts, is that God only helps those who help themselves, and you can't just hang everything on because God said so. I I often think to myself, like, if it was through the mandate of God that we do these things, then for every woman who was killed in an abusive relationship, for every like woman that has lost a future, for every woman that has that is a teenage pregnancy, right? Like you effectively change the course of their lives. Who is accountable for that if not us? God isn't going to be accountable for that. He's not going to sit down there and be like, okay, so the number of years from this one I move to this one, the number of years I move to that one, move to that one. Here's a new life, I give you this number of years. That doesn't work that way.
I think we also need to take into account that there's not much information available around for, let's say if a woman wants to leave a abusive marriage lah kan. It's like, so where do I go now? I mean, after I've done a police report and all that kan, it's like that information on where do you go, what do you do, how much does it cost, is not actually freely available.
Yes,
Like for
that's
me
true.
kan, my own personal experience lah, when I had to file for divorce kan, and it was like I seriously don't know what to do, where to go, until a few friends or people message me, oh, you can apply for fasah fasah divorce kan. But prior to that, macam like, oh, what do I do now? And then terus kena lagi yang I know lah, my family has good intentions at heart, but the macam like my mom, when she heard about it, janganlah kau pergi nanti kau kena apa, macam dia bilang nanti kau kena macam for being, what's the word already kalau women who do not listen to their husbands, apa tu the word
Nushus. Is it nushus? Is it
no
what the
shoes.
haka, right?
Ya,
Yeah, the
nanti dia bilang kau no shoes, nanti kau terpaksa bayar whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah,
ya,
yeah.
sudahlah, takut mula-mula mau bikin police report pun takut. And then lepas tu kena suruh tarik balik lagi. Lepas tu apa lagi. So it's hard to find the support lah if you don't know where to find the support.
Yeah, true. Yeah, whenever macam I've met few friends yang have this kind of issue, right? Firstly, they are very shy. They are very embarrassed to share yang, oh, I'm in this abusive relationship, because it is something yang embarrassing for them to to say lah yang I picked this guy to be my husband, but then in the end he inflicted harm on me. So I think it is something yang need to be, we need to support them whenever they come to us with this problem. But then yes, I do agree, not all information are available what to do next. How do you conduct the police report? Because I know some of my friends, when they do a police report, then the police will say that, oh ini hal keluarga, jadi kami tidak mau masuk campur, so lebih baik puan dan tuan selesaikan di luar. Then this is not something yang
Yeah, so
supporting the woman to come forward, see. And then from WhatsApp chat that, you know, when this family say you will be nusyus or whatever. But then if you are isteri yang mendengar kata, but then you're dead, you died because of defending that mendengar kata, then what is the point of that, you know? Okay. Yeah lah, but I think that they need to be some initiative from any NGO ataupun any, maybe the kementerian should have this initiative to like do a proper flow chart on how to deal. It's just, you know, a pamphlet is just simple if it's coming from the kementerian, because they have all the people to do it, all the research, right? It's just, I think, wasted resources to pay people, but then they did not do anything for people, for the rakyat lah, what you say.
yeah, maybe instead of just focusing lah, macam targeting the people who experience domestic violence, kan, what they should do is also target the families. Say this is how you should support the if your, you know, your daughter or your son is in domestic violence, you know, situation, this is how you can support them, you know. Instead it's been very like, kalau kau tu victim, kau lah yang terpaksa have to handle everything by yourself.
I think I also wanted to pick on, you know, something that Suri said earlier, which tied into what she said now about, like, you know, sacrifice and like the whole dying thing. You know, I think, you know, if a woman dies because dia menghormati mendengar kata tuh, you probably can think of it as a sacrifice, or in a way probably to some people a form of jihad, right? So being an obedient wife, which to me I think is very problematic. And I think back to the question of to marry or not to marry, a lot of women are now rebelling against this idea of sacrifice. Like, why do I need to sacrifice everything just to fulfill this societal expectation for me to be married? But men are expected to sacrifice very little at all. You know, like career sacrifice, we don't talk about that when it comes to men. You know, you don't talk about dads having to delay their promotion because they're a new dad. But you have to, but that's something that women, even before they get married, even before they pregnant, they have to think about that. Like, they have to plan their life around their fertility cycle in a way, kan? And I think so now that more and more women are empowered, we can make our own money, educated, apa semua tu. It's like maybe we want to make sacrifice, but maybe the sacrifice that we want to make, not that the ones that society expects us to make lah. So maybe if we sacrifice having family because we want to have financial freedom, apa semua tu, then that's what one we take, but not that one. So begitulah. So because again, as a society kan, we still fail to support even women yang mau berkerjaya dengan mau berkeluarga. Okay, so like how hard it is to get sometimes a good nursery system, support system in certain workplaces, you know, parental leave, apa semua tu. Yeah, so these things lah, because you just expect women to figure out all of this out by themselves without any input from the society, which is not fair lah, kan? Yeah, because it takes a village to raise. What is it? What's the English of it?
It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, not just the mother or the father.
Yeah, true. Dia macam, I think the society is being more friendly to guys when it comes to the issue of marriage. See, because they would be on the good side lah. I mean, let's face it lah. Whenever we say yang whenever I say that I don't believe my focus now is to focus on my job. not to focus on my family. Then my dad will counter me with things like this. You know, as a father, I would expect you to have a husband that could provide for you in the future. Because in the end, when you old and lonely, you would need to have your husband with you. You need to have your son with you. Then I was like, what about my dream of not being married? See, it is also how do I say it? It is also a dream. Some girls dream to be a mother. Some girls dreams to be a uh, great, rich woman. It's different. But then how we celebrate these different dreams, right? Because of our society is so like, if you are not married at the age of this, as a woman, you don't fall into definition of real woman. Probably somewhere along that line lah.
Can I just add something? This was something that was said to me, not directly to me lah, but among a group of undergraduate students. Okay, when I was an undergraduate student, this guy married young, so I think he was like 21 or 20 when he got married. Okay, so by the time he was enrolled as a student, he was already married. So a lot of these his peers, my friends juga lah, were kind of impressed, like, oh, why did you marry young? Like, you were a young guy, apa semua tu kan. And then he said something that to this day like irks me, like, apa tu dia cakap, kalau lelaki lebih tua and dia tidak kahwin, saham dia makin naik. So the older a man is, the higher his apa orang bilang, his value lah.
Market value.
Yes, tapi for a woman, the older she gets without being married, the lower her value. And to me, right, even as a like 19, 20-year-old woman, I'm like thinking, what? And then, but then the reaction around from the women around him were like, yeah, betul tu. Can you think that? How is that a valid reasoning of seeing a person's worth? Amazes me. And a lot of these students, they were in the field of education, so they were actually learning to become teachers.
So this is like back to that Prof Muhaya statement about jodoh, right? It's like as if like if you don't find a partner right now when you're still young, then your values jatuh lah. Apa sudah dibilang tu?
Something to do with like, too many women now are like full of the testosterone. I don't even know what that means. We should drink more soy milk for estrogen. Yeah, and then so because of that, we're too driven, too independent, and men perhaps supposedly don't like that. Okay.
I don't know. Isn't that like insulting to the men to say that they can't accept women who are driven and ambitious? Robert wants to say something.
No, I completely agree, like 100%. So here's the thing. When I was growing up, I was told, for one like in the same vein, like as we said, you have to find a wife who will look after you and take care of you when you're old. Who's going to be there by your side? You must think of these things, and it's prevalent in many cultures. Chinese isn't a stranger to this either, right? It's one of the benefits of being in Southeast Asia, I would say. But here's the thing. Did you imagine that as a man you were told that you grow up and become a lawyer, engineer, doctor, or become an accountant, or become like any of these things, right? That you're going to marry someone who's a, kira lah ikan lah, who doesn't do anything except make up the house and do laundry? You just basically marry the maid. I mean, if that's your goal and you want to marry a maid, power to you. I'm not against that. Like you can go ahead, but let's if you look back at what we are seeing, if you're telling women that kill your dreams, buat bodoh-bodoh sikit bah. Kalau tidak, itu laki tidak akan won't find you. It's like, I don't want a stupid wife. I want an Amelia Earhart. I want a Marie Curie. I want someone who achieves something that I can see and grow with. right? It's like if the best partnerships in the world are built on husband and wife. I don't understand why you would insist to both men and women that the default standard for a woman is a maid and default standard for a man is an ATM. It's demeaning to the both of us. Like it's demeaning to men, it's demeaning to women. I don't understand.
And then there's so many misconceptions about now. Oh, in the age of feminism, you want the roles reversed. The women are the ATM and the men are the maid. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that you can be either or and both at any point of the relationship, and it's fine. Okay, not maid lah. Isn't like you know what I mean? Like being very involved with the domestic work, and then child rearing, and also being very active in the financial resources. Yeah, achievement lah, breadwinning. Yeah, it's not tied to any specific gender.
Yeah. Just want to add on what Farhana said about the reverse role, right? So a few days ago, I had this presentation in my for my office, right? So I presented on the issue of toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. Okay, so I presented. So because there's three guys in the office, right? My boss, my junior, and also my partner lah. Then whenever I introduce, right, this is the comment that I get from my junior. He said like this: in the world today where feminism work, they want an equal standing with the guy. This is the question. So his opinion was, can the woman do all the things that guys can do, number one, and number two, can the woman make the first move towards the boyfriend, towards the man? Can woman take the first step? Then I told him, like, you are looking at a living proof that I asked my boyfriend to be my boyfriend. Then they was like, okay. Then I was like, okay, boy. Yeah lah. But then I think we have a misconception of how feminism work lah. But then I think at the end of the presentation, everyone agrees that it should be 50-50. I mean, the guy and the woman, whatever role they play should be equal lah, of equal standing.
Yeah. So here's my thing. Right? It's like we how many generations are we in, like, right at this point? The biggest financial upturn of Southeast Asia happened in like the early 1900s. Okay, we're talking about post World War II, like mid 1900s. Okay, post World War II. That means for many of us, we are the second generation to benefit from like this growth in economics lah, right? In that turn, we convince our sons and daughters that they must study hard, must get all A's. You've invested 12 years of your life just to reach SPM. You've invested another 4 years on top of that to get your bachelor's. You invest another 2 years on top of that to get your master's. On top of the things that accountants have to do, which is the like things like the LCCI, ACCA, or whatever else you have you. On top of the things that the engineers have to do, which is like the what choice, the engineer's test. On top of the things the doctors have to do, which is housemanship. Like, did you think that the people were going to invest 20 years of their life into education only to junk it all away for the point of sacrifice? What does sacrifice mean, right? In a marriage, in the context of a marriage, because if you're asking someone like to sink 500,000 as a sacrifice, you better make sure that the parents understand that, because your dowry had to be at least 500,000 lah, right?
I think that people, when they think about that, they think that people dia punya apa tu, their mood is that they don't want to work in their life. If they could, they don't want to work at all. So even if you spend so much for your education, never mind ma, you just get a rich husband. Now you never have to work a day in your life.
For people in pedalaman, for underage marriages, for people in those positions, I can completely understand their ignorance and their like the situation that they're in. I can completely understand that. But if you are the kind of parent that teaches your child that you have to reach for the stars, you must get SPM, Okay, let's not even talk about university. SPM, right? What does the SPM mean to us, right? Otherwise, like my grandfather, but UPSR is just yeah, not UPSR, STP, SP, whatever they call it back then. You know, it's like it. You don't have to study hard. The most important thing is experience. Like, you know, so you go out and get your experience. That makes you better in bed, right? I mean, if the idea is the gold standard, right, is to become a great lay in bed lah, right? Okay, because you want to menghalalkan everything lah, right? Then the obvious standard to that is you're not going to find that in books. We don't even teach sex ed down here. Let's forget it. You don't reach sex ed until you're form 3, you know, and even then, you know, like, yeah, right? So if I'm going to tell a little girl, right, that her objective in life is to catch a great man, the first thing you should do is work the streets. Because where else are you going to get the knowledge of what makes a shitty man? All the shitty men are on the streets. You want to find a good man, you have to tell the good from the bad. Right? I mean, if we go down this line of reasoning, then all of that makes sense. Right? But the fact is that that's not what we did. We told women, like Dr. Farhana, you're a great example of, you know, you went out and you went down the mile all the way. Does that mean that you've effectively, you know, like lost your market value? Like, what have you been trying to teach me all these years? You know, I've studied life. I've hit the Asian gold standard. I crossed all A's. I, you know, like I got my 13 A's in SPM. I got my what course? I got my all A's in my diploma and my undergrad and my undergraduate. I even went all the way to masters and I got distinction. You know, that's how great I am. Like, how then do you expect me to drop everything and turn into a fish? Just so I can flounder around in the house, you know, cook breakfast and lunch and dinner, do the clothes, make up the house, and then at the end of the day, when I got nothing else, I'm bored out of my mind, I do MLM.
It's like that perempuan ni doesn't matter their level of education. In the end, balik ke dapur juga. And if somebody else said yes, but size dapur dia tu lain.
I mean, yeah, it's like, yes, we wouldn't mind cooking for our family if lah kan we appreciated ka, you know, because we love our family, because we really do love our family. But to say it's a
gender thing. It's
prerequisite, you know, to being a good wife, that's a bit like
exactly, that's so old lah. That's so outdated kind. Yeah. And actually, men don't even have an excuse not to know how to cook because so many great examples are out there. Chef One, Gordon Ramsay.
The first master chef is Marco Pierre White. He was a man. Hello. You didn't see this monarch in Italy. You didn't see these French like these French women become these master chefs. Like, what happened?
Exactly. You know? So there's memang a discrepancy lah. Apa tu? And what did I want to say? Oh yeah, something to do with when we talked about children, kan? And I think because the way we think about marriage is that it's an investment for the future. Okay, get married. Not only do you get a spouse to take care of you, but you get children who will then, if you raise them well, they become academically stellar, get good jobs, get good money, then they can take care of you. And again, that's also a burden that a lot of young people now are being very conscious and critical about. So that's why you see in social media a lot of videos about how to talk to your children, you know, or like how to parent your child. Because if you actually look at those videos, can you think, yeah lah, the way my parents raised me was a bit questionable, you know, in a way, because you know, a lot of macam anak misali apa semua tu kan. So yeah, and I think people who do question or are a bit resistant to marriage, they see security for the future in another way. You know, like it doesn't even have to be. Sometimes it can be even worse. Your children can be like, I know for some people who unfortunately have children who are like disabled. okay, or have learning disabilities. So that child cannot be their investment for the future, because they have to take care of the child until the child, passes on. Kan? So again, macam itulah. So a lot of these interrelated issues lah, concerns when it comes to talk about marriage. And I think a lot of women, even men nowadays, are very aware of these factors lah when they think about whether I should marry or not.
I think I want to share one thing because the other day I talked to my partner, right? Then we were discussing on the cost of marriage. So because my partner is my best friend now. So my best friend is not yet married. Okay. Then he said to me that his concern about getting married is because for Chinese, is it the dowry ataupun the money yang you need to have before you get married to this girl is like on a bigger sum compared to Malays lah. Okay, my brother the other day when he got married, he spent around 25K only. Then my friend was very shocked when he knows 25K only. In his mind, he said that, oh, he need to have at least 80K to get married. And I was like, okay, probably this is gonna be a reason why you're not gonna get married ataupun you're gonna get married very very late. So I was like, okay, maybe cost is one of the, compared to women lah, cost is a factor that could cause a guy not to get married lah. So maybe Robert, you have any input on this, the issue of cost? an issue of cost.
I didn't coin any of this. Okay, just put it out there. Singapore made a meme out of it way back in the 1990s, right? Like they were the original meme people, right? When they said you must have the 5 C's. You must have your cash, credit card, condo, car, and what was the last one already? So it's like we set ourselves up for failure by doing that. Like, did you think that when the financial crisis hit, that people were going to see any of the 5 C's? Like, seriously? Like because if this is like Masuri, you pointed out really on the dot here. If we're gonna break down marriage to its basics, right? It's about a price tag. So the act of marriage alone, do you know the price tag of the table if you're gonna invite people to your wedding? Because you're gonna need to know this shit, right? You want a $500 table, you want a $1,000 table. It makes a difference. One table can sit 10 people. So you want 100 people coming to your wedding? That's 10 by 100. That's at least if you're gonna spend average, let's say conservative, 500 ringgit. 500 ringgit times 10 is already 5,000. That's just the food. We haven't counted in the Chinese case. We haven't counted the amount of beer and wine that you have to cater for. Your father's friends, they're mostly wine drinkers, if not alcohol drinkers. You have to buy several cases, right? On top of those cases, if you want to show the people that you can provide, no expense spared, right? So you must have abalone on the table. You must have you must have a fish. Without a fish, I tell you, your wedding table is worthless. People don't see you with money on. Every wedding to a Chinese is an evaluation of how much the table costs. I kid you not. When we ready, in the standard, there's a very simple act when you go to a wedding. You're supposed to bring a present. To the Chinese, that is an ang pao. That ang pao, in recent years, has been debated for the value that you're supposed to put inside. Because it is a crime if you, according to this social contract, if I underfill the ang pao with too little, when the table costs me $1,000. If the table costs me $1,000, I expect you to at least give me 500, right? Be nice lah.
Yeah, it's actually asking the guests to pay for some of the cost of the wedding, kan?
Basically, right? Yeah. Because that's a social contract to Chinese lah, right? And then on top of that, right, when you sign the act, when you run on GPM, you have to think, how much does a child cost? You've got the first 5 years to think about, the first 10 years to think about. By the time they hit school, how much would you have invested into them? How much would you have to make, right? Can you provide the house? How much will the house cost on top of that? Is the house big enough for 2 people, let alone 5, right? Is all of these check boxes need to be marked. And if you're not doing it, then obviously you're ill prepared for any marriage. That is the core rule. And one of the things that I went into my adulthood knowing was, when you marry, your taxes double. You're allowed taxes because you have a wife. So obviously your tax value isn't going to be lower, it's going to be higher. And that allows you to buy a house. If you don't have a wife, you can't buy a house, otherwise the income tax is going to come look for you. How can a single person earn enough to earn a house? So all of these things were concerns going into life, like into adulthood. And we don't teach kids enough of this, like to have them ready to for the simple act of signing a piece of paper. Like we don't. There's so much that comes attached to that, like in the form of a check, right? And if you're not prepared for that check, like, you have to honestly ask yourself, one of the big things of becoming a new generation is that we don't earn enough. We earn the same rate our parents did back in the 90s. Things haven't changed at all. And costs have inflated. Now, cost for a wedding table used to be 200 ringgit. Now it's $1,000, right? I mean, for a good table. And like where has that money gone? Otherwise, the only way that you're going to realistically get married and survive without money being a thing is you have to earn a 5-figure salary, right?
As of now, I'm changing my mind of getting any Chinese husband lah.
Aku sudah.
You know what? I'm not gonna put myself through that headache. So I'm gonna find a Malay husband lah to have a cheaper wedding.
No, the cheapest wedding is orang putih orang putih. I think we can all learn from them lah, because the whole no, if you have any like Asian car, Middle Eastern car, whatever, it's just too expensive. Even the Greeks, also all these people are too expensive weddings. Yeah, it's the Europeans, the Scandinavians. So what do you need to follow them lah?
So
whoever has the biggest fattest wedding is a definite no. No big fat weddings.
Yeah.
So the issue, of course, could be one of the reason why people don't want to get married.
No, it's definitely a reason. Definitely a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Even if you have a good partner, you have an understanding of how marriage should work. But then if you have no money, then say bye-bye lah.
I saw this one last week, this one guy, this Malay guy, kesian juga lah. And I think this is where patriarchy can be very harmful towards men, because they are expected, among the Muslim community here, to fork out most of the spending for the wedding. So apparently this guy tiada cukup duit untuk kahwin dia punya girlfriend. So in the end, what she did, she stood him up and married somebody else. That's so sad. Like, he did a whole TikTok thing about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's super sad lah. But that's because women are raised.
Yeah, better to know now, right? Than in life.
But that's why, because if you're a woman and you're raised to believe that, a man needs to have enough money to afford you. If he can't afford you, find somebody else who can. It's like, to me, it's like, I never thought of that. That was never in my consideration lah for me, because.
So should you have gotten married in the first place? That's the big question.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in the world, in context of what we're talking about, should we get married or not? Like, I think we know enough about the popular aspects of marriage that make it like, whether it's kahwin to menghalalkan sex kah, whether it's kahwin to afford a bigger house kah, whether it's kahwin to any one of these things. It's so easy to write off why we should get married, right? Because we love each other, suka sama suka bah. You know what I mean? And And we don't spend enough time talking about why marriages fail. And in understanding why marriages fail, do we actually get a better understanding of why you should get married in the first place? Because the reality is at the statistics that you're showing, if it's 10 years in any marriage, that means your child on average, you might have two, you might have one child that is like at least 3 years, 4 years old, um, just judging by the duration of the marriage. And what happens to the kids? Because I'm a product of basically what is a divorce, right? And you don't ever want your parent to come to you and ask, who are you going to choose? Who are you going to go with? If we come time to split time, do you choose mom or dad? You understand that if you go with mom, there's not going to be any money. You understand that because she hasn't contributed anything to the family. What? The breadwinner is the husband, right? So if we abandon the women like that and they become single mothers, it's no wonder they do things like MLM in order to enrich themselves. It's no wonder that they support things like Causeway, where everyone can earn. If you're a middleman, you earn more.
Okay, no disclaimer. No criticism against
No
MLM.
criticism against any.
It's just an observation, lah.
How you do business is reflected in any of this. That's all I'm saying.
But again, even some people wouldn't even have the chance to do MLM or side business. If they're in a very controlling relationship.
Yeah.
So the fact that you can is also good enough lah juga.
MLM pun bukan murah-murah tuh, Mustad.
Itulah itu. But Sabrina, you want to wrap this up terlebih masa pula kita ini.
Iya. Apa kita mau cakap? Saya tidak pandai yo.
Okay ba? So final words lah kali.
Okay. Okay, so that was a very nice and hot discussion about mau kawin kan, Ndak? So we talked about, at first we talked about, finding the right partner, and and it all boils down to having respect for each other, and then also of course money lah kan. They would say that getting married is no simple, no easy thing to do lah, and then divorce pun lagi teruk lah actually. Yeah, so anyway, I really enjoyed this afternoon talking to the rest of the Cerata team. Yeah, does anyone have anything else to add on? Farhana?
Go, Suri.
I think just one closing remarks for this issue. To Kahwin or not to Kahwin, I believe that it should be an individual choice, because getting into a marriage is not a society. It's not a community project. See, it is a union of two people. So if the person are not ready ataupun is not in a condition to get married, then people surrounding that but particular person should be supportive of his or her dreams. It shouldn't be we shouldn't push our expectation to other person, especially in terms of marriage, because we can say, but then the person yang going through the relationship ataupun the marriage is not us, it's gonna be that person. So as women, I humbly believe that we be as smart as possible, be as rich as possible. If that man don't see your value ataupun that man is too insecure for you, then don't just let them be. Just achieve and achieve, because that's just how life gonna be. Keep progressing as a woman or even as a guy. Yeah, that's closing from me lah.
Okay, thank you, Suri. For me, just to add a bit more to Suri, yes, it's an individual choice. So the society should respect those choices. But when two people do decide to get married, then the society needs to come together to support them lah. kind of like we said, that it takes a village to raise a child, and it should be so in the support of a family institution lah. As for me, I would say, like, I think there was always that misbelief of, if you align to feminist ideals, then you should be against marriage, you know. And I remember, like, even when I was doing my PhD, and it was during graduation, and I had my supervisor with me and another colleague, and she jokingly said, "We don't need a man." And then I think something along the lines, my supervisor said, "No, we don't need a man, but it's okay if you want a man." You know, yeah. So don't use um, kind of like those reasonings to say why you don't want to be married. Like, don't deny what you obviously want because of, you know, your feminist ideals. If you still believe in marriage, like, if you don't, then it's fine for whatever reason. So yeah, that's one thing. So what I'm trying to say, simply put, is you can be a feminist and still be married, especially if you find the right person. Yeah. And yeah, and I think Suri beautifully wrapped things up lah for the whole thing. And also Sabrina. Thank you. Really enjoyable.
Okay.